The Galactic Concordat had lasted 300 years, built on a foundation of carefully negotiated boundaries and mutual respect. Every species had their designated sectors, their trade routes, their spheres of influence. The humans, relative newcomers to the galactic stage, had been assigned a modest cluster of systems on the outer rim, 17 worlds that the older civilizations considered barely worth mentioning. Admiral Zexhari of the Vorthan Empire reviewed the morning reports from her flagship, the Eternal Dominion. 300 ships of the combined Galactic Defense Fleet hung in perfect formation around the contested Kepler Nexus, a strategic junction that had become the focal point of the latest territorial dispute. The humans had filed a formal claim, citing some obscure provision in the original treaty. Ridiculous, of course. The Nexus belonged to the Vorthan sphere by right of discovery, regardless of whatever loopholes the humans thought they'd found. Admiral, her communications officer announced, the human delegation ship is requesting permission to dock. Zexhari's mandibles clicked in annoyance. One ship? They send one ship to negotiate for a star system? She gestured dismissively. Grant them permission. Let's see what desperate offer they've brought this time. The human vessel Resilience was laughably small compared to the massive dreadnoughts surrounding it, a diplomatic courier barely 200 meters long. As it approached the Eternal Dominion, Zexhari couldn't help but feel a mixture of pity and contempt. Humanity had shown promise in their early years, their adaptability earning them grudging respect from some quarters, but they had never learned their place, always pushing, always claiming rights they hadn't earned through conquest or superiority. Captain Elena Vasquez stepped aboard the Vorthan flagship with only 2 aides, her dress uniform crisp despite the long journey from human space. She was younger than Zexhari had expected, with the kind of quiet confidence that the Admiral found irritating in lesser species. Admiral Zexhari, Vasquez said, offering a formal bow. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. Captain, Zexhari replied, settling her massive frame into the command throne. I confess I'm curious what humanity thinks it can offer that would convince us to abandon our rightful claim to the Nexus. Vasquez smiled, but there was something cold in her expression. We're not here to negotiate, Admiral. We're here to deliver a message. The bridge fell silent. Even the constant hum of the ship's systems seemed to fade into the background. A message? Zexhari's voice carried a dangerous edge. You bring one ship into the heart of my fleet to deliver a message? The message is simple, Vasquez continued, her voice steady. Humanity is formally withdrawing from the Galactic Concordat, effective immediately. Laughter erupted across the bridge. Even Zexhari found herself amused by the audacity. Captain, surely you understand that withdrawal from the Concordat means giving up all protections, all trade agreements, all diplomatic immunity. You would be declaring your species rogue. We understand perfectly. And you think this will somehow pressure us into conceding the Nexus? Child, there are 300 ships surrounding your vessel. We could reduce it to atoms before you finish transmitting your withdrawal notice. Vasquez reached into her jacket and withdrew a small device. I'd like you to look at something first. The device projected a holographic star chart of human space, their modest 17 systems glowing softly in the 3-dimensional display. But as Vasquez manipulated the controls, the display expanded, revealing something that made Zexhari's blood freeze. Hidden in the dark spaces between the stars, in the empty voids that all galactic civilizations had learned to avoid, thousands upon thousands of ships hung silent and still. They were massive, larger than anything in the current galactic fleet, and their design was unlike anything Zexhari had ever seen. Sleek, predatory, and completely dark.
What?
What am I looking at? Zexhari whispered. Our real fleet, Vasquez replied. You see, Admiral, humanity has a peculiar trait. We're very good at hiding our true capabilities. The 17 systems you gave us, they were perfect. Far enough from prying eyes that we could work in peace. The display zoomed in on one of the massive vessels. Even dormant, it radiated an aura of barely contained violence. These ships have been waiting for 3 centuries, Admiral. Waiting in the cold and dark while we played by your rules, accepted your limitations, smiled and nodded while you treated us like children. Zexhari's tactical officer was frantically running scans, his voice shaking as he reported, Admiral, I'm detecting massive energy signatures. These readings, they can't be accurate. The power levels are off the charts. Oh, they're accurate, Vasquez said. We've had 300 years to study every ship design in the galaxy, to understand every weakness, every blind spot. 300 years to build something better. This is impossible, Sexhari snarled. The monitoring stations, the inspection protocols, all carefully managed. You'd be surprised how easy it is to fool someone who doesn't want to look too closely. Vasquez smiled again, and this time it was genuinely warm. We appreciate the education, Admiral. Really. We learned so much about galactic civilization, about how power actually works out here. The communications officer's voice cracked as he spoke. Admiral, we're receiving similar transmissions from across the galaxy. Human vessels are appearing everywhere, emerging from what we thought was empty space. Vasquez nodded. The Concordate served its purpose. It gave us time to prepare, to understand what we were really dealing with. But humanity has outgrown its cage. She gestured to the holographic display, where the massive ships were beginning to show signs of life, running lights activating, energy signatures spiking. You wanted to know what we could offer for the Nexus? Vasquez asked. We're offering you the same thing we're offering everyone else, a choice. You can accept that there's a new power in the galaxy, or you can learn why we call this the Dead Fleet. Dead Fleet? Sexhari could barely form the words. Because, Admiral, everything these ships touch dies. We built them for one purpose, to ensure that humanity never has to bow to anyone again. The Resilience was already moving, turning away from the Eternal Dominion with casual disregard for the weapons trained on it. The Kepler Nexus now belongs to humanity, Vasquez called back as she and her aides headed for their ship. As does everything else we decide we want. The age of asking permission is over. As the human ship departed, Sexhari stared at the holographic display showing thousands of awakening giants. The galaxy had indeed signed a treaty with humanity 3 centuries ago. They just hadn't realized they were signing their own surrender. The Dead Fleet was awake, and the balance of power had shifted forever.